If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Tonight I've got the great honour, and I mean the great honour, of having the great Rusty Firmin. I've really been looking forward to this one, to have somebody who was actually on the balcony and not pretending like everybody else was. Hi, Rusty, how are you doing?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, nice to be invited again. It's a couple of days, but you know what? I like to tell the stories. They don't change in mind, and eventually they go into like a legacy for yourself. And to be invited back yet again, it seems to be so many of them.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just
a
fun.
popular medium. Yeah, it's a very popular medium at the moment. There's so many podcasts, it's unreal.
Yeah.
But I'm cock a hoop to say a phrase. I don't think I've ever said that before in my life. To have you on, and I have been trying to chase you for a while, and I know how busy you are. So I really do appreciate you coming on. What's with the football talk?
Well, this one, Liverpool, obviously, I've been a lifelong supporter ever since Peter Thompson left Carlisle all those years ago, ended up playing for Liverpool. Bill Shankly thought he was the best left-sided player he'd ever seen. Signed him eventually up to Liverpool. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago. I've followed them all my life, but this one here is a bit special because I was only given it at Christmas. Shane Ball, who I work with on my memorabilia side, he's got 4 children, and they bought me this for Christmas. So I thought, you know what? It's nice on a hanger, but why not let people see what it is and where it came from? So it's got this on the front, the old one, brand new strip. On the back, it's got Firmin, missing the O from Firmino. So he was a great player who just left Liverpool, Brazilian, absolute brilliant player. So my name is on the back of this, Firmin. If you put an O on the end of it, that's a Brazilian star. So it's a story in itself. But I just wanted to show it off because I could leave it on the hanger forever, but I won't.
Get some use out of it, It's great to get you it as well. A really good Christmas present.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what we do in this podcast is we ask 5 questions. So the 5 questions are: where did you grow up? Why did you join the military? What was it like? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? And as anyone who's listening to this now is probably start thinking, but he's got a really good story. So we'll just start off. If you can just give us a bit of background, like where you grew up, what that was like, and what made you join actually join the military.
Well, I was born in Carlisle. I keep saying it. The more I say it now, the older I get. I was born there, and within 14 months, 14 months, I was adopted because my mother didn't want me. But so what did I do to piss her off at that age? I don't know. But that's where I was. And I started out with a hard life. Carlisle was a hard place. It still is. And I've been around the world a million times. And actually now 30 miles from Carlisle. So I get memories when I go back there. And when I think about where I played football, which schools I went to, where I had my first proper fight, how bad I was at school. For people who don't know, and a sport these days with smartphones, computers, this, that, and the other. No, I was the guy in the corridor for being bad, for talking too much. 5 foot nothing, weighed about 6.5 stone. So I didn't have a good start to life. I'll be honest with you. And then I was passed around family to family, which I thought were family, but most of them weren't. Aunties here, aunties there. And that was my growing up, all the way through. And it didn't matter whether I was in Harrowby, whether I was down in Denton Home, or anywhere like that. These are the places where I grew up. I had some friends, and one of them is still a good friend of mine today and still alive, thank God, Geordie Crichton from Carlisle. And we used to be everything together. He's in my book. A picture of me and him together with an air gun, at that age, about that size. But when you think back, I went one way, but I could have very easily gone the other way, which we'll probably come on to later.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up and moving around, I didn't know what I was going to do. I went to so many different schools that the settled life which people have, I didn't have. So I didn't know how to cope. And I think they found out what was supposed to be my father and mother at the time, which actually weren't.
So, I mean, that was a bit tough for you, that.
Yeah. It's, you see him one minute, you would see him the next minute, they'd be with an auntie this side, an auntie over there, an uncle over there, an auntie, and so on. And that went on all the way through. And then one day, somehow, I was forced into the army at age 15. I went to Carlisle recruitment office, not wanting to go. I had long hair down here, tight blue jeans on, Cuban heel boots, Rolling Stones fan. Wanted to play football. Why would I want to go in the army? Dude, please, if you can answer that, you're a better man than me. But I went in there and somehow I thought I flunked that easily. Fitness-wise, out on the runs, you couldn't stop me. Absolutely gone. But in the classroom, I was like useless. But somehow, when I did the entrance exam to get into the army, I passed it. I didn't want to pass it, but I passed it. And I ended up, the same as you, in the Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Artillery at age 15.
So did you pick the artillery?
Sorry?
Were you given a choice? Did you choose the artillery?
I didn't want to do anything. I just turned up and they said, this is it. You're going to Nuneaton, Ramkirk and Nuneaton. Yeah. That's where they were then. And I remember, how the fuck did I get here? How did I actually get here? But I remember I still turned up there with long hair and thinking they'd boot me out. I had one case, an army suitcase, met a couple of guys going down that way on the train from Carlisle in the real old trains. I thought, well, I'm on my way. And that's how it started. I got picked up there, taken to the camp, whipped inside. I'll never forget the haircut, picture for the ID card, the lot. All my past was on the floor in front of me. Hair, the lot. And I'm going, what have I actually done? Nothing. It was done for me. But eventually it proved to be a good one. But that's how it all was. That's how it started for me. And it doesn't matter what anybody says. Unless you've been through that, you can talk about it and how good it must have been, how bad it must have been. But the bollocks. Until you've been there and done it, forget it. Because there's too many
amateur warriors. You've got that experience, yeah.
I've been there. And this is where I've got to from there with the person who had nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So what did you think of Junior Leaders then? I mean, I turned up there a lot later than you did. I was 1985. I went there, and I was kind of mollycoddled as a kid. I had two brothers in the army that were older than me, and I was the youngest in the family. My family was nothing like yours. Your upbringing and that. I was classed as a baby, and when I turned up at juniors, I was shitting myself, to be honest, and I didn't know what to expect. And
well,
but it was good. You know, again, like you said, it's all done for you, so you don't have to think that much. But then you get into the routines and stuff.
The thing is that because I didn't have any discipline, because there was nobody there to guide me.
Hmm.
You know, if I went out to midnight as a kid, nobody would miss me. You know, nowadays it's all changed.
Yeah.
But I could have gone out for a day, 2 days, which I've done in the past. And actually, nobody, nobody would miss you, would they? Because you come back in somewhere and things carry on. Basically, if I went out and didn't come back, you wouldn't be missed, you know. But it was never like all night. But the thing is, the growing up side of it, and went to junior leaders. It was, how do you say, the first 3 months, September 65 to December was my initial basic training. They call it a NIG.
Yeah.
A new intake gunner, right, as 15. When you pass your first 3 months, you can then start to go on. But when I went home that December, my first leave ever, I wasn't really accepted very well because there was nobody there. But I tried to get £50, 50,
That's a lot of
to
money.
buy
Then.
myself out. Yeah, to buy myself out. And I couldn't get £50. So I had to go back after I think, 2-week break, something like that. I went back. And I always think back to it. What happened if I never went back? But I did. Went back. But by then, even that small stature and stuff, I was being recognised as a footballer,
Hmm.
especially by there's a paddock guy, a sergeant, come to me. He said, "Come football training with the regimental team, you know, the junior leaders team." I thought, fucking hell, somebody's recognised me because I was so small, and you know, when I started off. So I did. I ended up playing all the way through the 2 years of junior leaders. I had no interest in junior leaders. You know, none at all. Absolutely nothing. So you go and do your training through the day. You'll be marching all day long, doing square bashing, as they call it. What a nightmare for me. And I'm always thinking, football, yeah. So I represented the junior leaders for the 2 years I was there, which was great because I wasn't with anybody. I was just on my own. But then I started picking up friends because I was actually getting a bit of a name as a footballer.
Hmm.
But I had to become a tracksuit soldier. I didn't want Green Army stuff, not at all. And with everything else, whatever went on in those 2 years, I wanted to do physical training and everything. I did basketball, you know, football. I tried boxing. I do everything just to be out of a uniform. And it's strange when you say that. That's a fact. So I did my 2 years. You know, a lot of bullying going on because I was little. It didn't happen afterwards, by the way, but it did. And I'm not against that. You know, I don't mean now. You know, that was part of my growing up. And it was helping me to where I am now. So I'm not going to turn around today and say bullying's illegal, this, that, and the other. It's not right. But I went through that, and this is what I turned out as. So,
I mean, it was different times, and it was different. You know, what we probably call robustness. You know,
loads.
you know, even in like my day, which was well after yours. You know, it was 20 years. I mean, I didn't see.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I didn't see much bullying at junior leaders.
Yeah,
Different when I got the regiment. You know, when I got my adult regiment, it was different then.
See, mine was the other way around.
Oh yeah.
Mine was I was quite small, quite thin. At 2 years there, I grew quite a lot. sort of, got myself into shape because I was always doing something physical and eating well.
Yeah.
And playing football, a couple of games a week. That's how it started. For the guy who couldn't do anything, I ended up representing the British Army at football, which is actually the highest standard you can get in semi-professional football.
Yeah.
But I did it. I represented the British. I've got my colours, So I'm proud of that. That was eventually. But going back to junior leaders, yeah, how I got there, I don't know. But maybe somebody knew something then that was in the future, as you well know. That maybe I was cut out but didn't know it. I don't know.
Maybe you just thought that you just needed that bit of discipline to settle you down, or to.
Sorry?
Maybe you just thought you needed some discipline to sort you out, basically, and that's a good place to get it.
I think that's missing in a lot of people I've seen, spoken to, and their kids and stuff. I do talks for cadets. I'm doing that. I've been asked to do stuff right now, as soon as possible, for kids that need a bit of guidance, a bit of leadership, a bit this, that, and the other. So I haven't stopped because I've got a background that I can relate to where I am now from where I was then. Most people can't.
Yeah.
I can. And, I haven't said no to any of them because you only need one to have a chance and you've succeeded.
Yeah.
There might be 20 kids there. If you got all 20, you'd be a miracle worker. But, you would. But the fact is that the more I think about it and what I've done and the messages I get, because people know, how did you do that? The fact is, I did it the hard way.
Yeah. And
as Frank Sinatra said, I did it my way, right? It's not everybody's, but mine's a realist, not, what should I think they want to hear?
Yeah.
It doesn't work with me. I think people know that. I have to tell them what I did and how I did it. And it worked. It wasn't easy, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
It still isn't easy right now. But I do think that it's missing in nowadays
in society. Yeah.
Sadly, in society. But I've always been there to help and always will be, as long as I live. And I get great enjoyment. I've done it, in police station, in prisons. I've spoken to those inmates and stuff over a few years. I've spoken in classrooms, to cadets, this, that, and the other. And that's something I can relate to because I could have been any one of them.
Yeah.
Some people say you were lucky. Yeah. I said, some people say you're lucky. I go, yeah, but I had to do it my way.
Yeah. So, luck comes into it, but you've got to have the hard work and the fortitude to do what you need to do as well as to get through them. Yeah,
you have to work.
Yeah.
It doesn't just, you don't get a letter through the post saying, today you're going to do this. Otherwise I'd have gone years ago. You get up in the morning and motivate yourself. How many kids can do that? I had to do it, and I had to do it all the way through my army career as well after that. That's where I am.
So what was it like leaving juniors and going over to 4-9, hitting the adult regiment?
Easy. 4-9 Field Regiment were a northern base unit, Blackpool area normally. They were in Barnard-Castle, County Durham.
Yeah.
So I went across there. I was lucky. Football. Remember? Football. Forget military. Football. I went over there. I was playing 3 games a week, going back to Carlisle at weekends to play with my mates in the local team, playing through the week. And I had guys like Geordie Bellamy, who used to be a Burnley player in his day, and Geordie Jones, and people like that. And all the 4-9 team, they took to me because of my football. And Geordie and them were left over from national service. So they went into national service. but liked it. All they did was play football. That suited me. Go and clean the guns in the morning. You can only clean them so many times, can't you? That's it. You can. And the afternoon would be a sports afternoon. Go on the piss downtown, or go do some football training. We were lucky. We had guys like Chalky and Bernie and all the rest of them that just wanted to play football. And that's why we won all the trophies, because we had the lot. We had everything. And we worked hard at football, probably harder than we ever did on the guns. But that was in that day when you weren't being used every day. And Deerbolt Camp now is a prison. That's where we were stationed, at Deerbolt Camp in County Durham.
Yeah.
So I've been told, I haven't been there, but I've been told it's a prison. But the memories of that, there was a couple of years up there before we went to Larkhill, 49 Field Regiment Support Unit. That is my memories of Barnard Castle and what we did there. Not a lot of soldiering, the odd exercise here and there, but it was a place where we could do an awful lot of sport. And we had good, boxing teams, we had this, that and the other. So there's that many memories.
So 49 moved down to Larkhill and then you just had to start working properly. So not as much sport then?
I did.
Yeah.
So we went down to 49. That would have been, I can't remember, 69 maybe. Can't quite remember. We went down to 49 Field Regiment Support Unit for the School of Artillery. So we got down there. And even though it was gunnery, as you're an ex-gunner, you had gunnery because it was support for the School of Artillery where all these different nationals come in for training. You'd probably be on the ranges in Larkhill 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah. That's not changed.
Yeah. And we'd still play football on Wednesday afternoon. The footballers would play football in the winter. Through the summer, the cricketers would play cricket. Well, I was both. I played both. Tracksuit, right? So I played both of them, along with other stuff. So that's it. And that's when I started then to get picked for the Gunners football team. So I was like, I didn't know how long we were going to spend there. We spent a couple and a half years there, 3.5 or 4 years, something like that. And all I did was play football, through the week, because I was static. Go and do your gunnery stuff.
Yeah.
Piece of piss, really. But then, weekends in particular, I remember playing for West Laverton and Market Laverton. I played one game in the morning for one and played the other one in the afternoon. So I played 2 games in one day. Not unusual. And then I'd go on the piss. So that's what I used to do. The guys there'll tell you that a lot of them are still alive. But, the married pads, as they call them, were stationed in Market Lavington and just up the road, West Lavington.
Yeah.
Literally, I suppose a mile apart. I don't even know. I can't remember. So he played for 1 in the morning and said, Rusty, come play in the afternoon. I'll go play in the afternoon. But that's how much interest I had in football and not the army. So it's just, as we go on through this, you'll find out I got motivated as we went along.
Yeah.
But that's it, So we did gunnery with for the School of Artillery. We did football and training and sport and adventure training. That's when I walked over the Pyrenees, 400 mile in 10 days over the Pyrenees Mountains. Only 3 of us finished it. It's all in my book, and for me, doing that in the summer was my training for the football in the winter. So things like that I used to do, without even getting a sweat, seriously fun, and then all of a sudden, things start, what do I do next? The circumstances play a part. I'm pretty much my own mind. And it doesn't matter the people I've met, I don't forget. Some of them are not with us, but quite a lot of them are. But they're all based up the north of England, like it was when I joined.
Yeah.
And I've been around the world, I don't know where, everywhere. Probably 90 countries, I don't know. So I've ended up back here. And all those mates I joined with are just down the road, really. Blackpool area, yeah.
So what did start motivating you to decide to go to 2-9?
I had a couple of friends I met in the Gunners football team. Remember, I was away playing football for the Gunners and stuff. I was still on my own. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make a move, it was going to be 7th Para RHA or 2-9 Commando. I looked at Aldershot. I looked at Plymouth.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was invited to both. I thought, I really thought I'm going to Plymouth. I had some army football, some of the core guys that played football were in the Commandos. Some were in 7th RHA and the surrounds. But I thought then, just me, I'm going to go to Plymouth. So that's how I ended up going to Plymouth to do the Commando course and get into 2-9. If I'd failed that, I'd have gone into 7th Para RHA or tried to. They say this is harder than this. You know what? They're not. It's that counts.
Yeah.
Right. Put your mind to it, But that was my mindset then. And I thought, I just need to make a change. And I did. I went down to Plymouth. I did the course, lucky enough. That's when I met one of my best mates, John McAleese, with the moustache. He ended up coming down there doing the same commando course as me, 74. And that's how we met and stayed friends to his untimely death, 2011. And that's how we started off. And if I'd never gone to 2-9, I would never have met him because he was an engineer. I was a commando, but it's an all-arms commando course, which in those days, anybody within the armed services can volunteer to do the course. You can't put you on it. They're not going to make it. You have to go on that course. You volunteer for it. That's how it happened. That's how it was meant to be. So we went on there and we both passed. It was quite hard. As I said, the struggle is within. That's my opinion. Nobody's going to change that anyway, but that's my opinion.
I mean, the Commando course is described as one of the hardest courses for any military in the world, isn't it?
It is, but if you've got a mindset and you're fit, it helps. I've seen people turn up on there that haven't done any training. They just, I'm going to try it. They fail. Best of luck to them because you know what? It's what you put into it, what you get out of it. And that's actually what I believed in, even though I was a youngster in comparison to now. But that was my goal, to get into the commandos. 2-9 Commando. They were artillery. I was artillery. I did a lot of stuff at Larkhill, which put me in good stead for artillery. The only difference now is I got a green beret. To say I'm part of the Commando family. 2-9, the Royal Marines and stuff. You do the one at ours, the beat-up as they call it, where they get rid of the people who might not going to go on and do it. Some volunteer, some get taken off, some get injured. It's not for everybody. But when you've done that, you go straight down over the weekend to Lympstone in Devon, the home of the Royal Marines. And that's where they've got, they're Navy, right? We're Army. So now they've got their hands on Army and they're going to do what they can to screw us up. You know what? It didn't work. Not with me or with John or with a lot of the other guys. We were a pain in the arse to them because whatever they tried, it didn't work. So I did the Marine course as well. And then having passed that, you get your Greenberry, great big parade, families and friends. Yeah, me and John didn't have anybody there, no friends, no family, apart from ourselves. So we just got pissed and had a piss up with the instructors in the end. So, but all the families and, big parade, and it was so much bullshit. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
So we just went, had a few beers, then went downtown and got pissed, and then went back to Plymouth. He went to Arbroath. Couldn't get further apart, no mobile phones and stuff. So John went up to Arbroath, 4-5 Commando.
And you're down at the Citadel. Wow.
And I was down at the Citadel.
Yeah.
And every now and then we just bang into each other, not knowing he might be down in Plymouth to do something, a course or whatever. I never went to Arbroath from Plymouth, but they would come down to 5-9 Commando, which was based in Plymouth. So not very often, but over those next few years, that's how for us it worked.
If you don't mind me asking, just go back a little bit there about the parade and stuff like that. And you touched on that, like you and John didn't have family there. Did that play? Did that affect you? Like I wouldn't say then. Now you'd say mental health. Then you know what I'm talking about, anything like that. Did that ever affect you in that way, or did you just take it part and parcel and you accepted it?
Well, if you think about it, I haven't had anybody since I was born.
Yeah.
So, no, no, it didn't. I can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Me and John never talked about it, really. It just meant that we weren't harnessed to anybody. We could just go down and do what we wanted on the piss. And that's what we did. There was no bones about that. We passed. We deserved a beer and stuff.
Yeah, too right.
But there's more than just me and John, by the way. There's a few others.
Yeah.
But the big deal is that they come down and watch the parade, and then you get the green berry. The Marines and stuff, they have to put a nail in the berry, don't they, to nail it onto the head. Me and John didn't bother with that shit, I got a green berry. That's what we come for. We're off. And that's the way we looked at it. I don't see the point in having a parade. It certainly didn't happen in the SAS. We'll come on to that later.
Yeah.
But it didn't. That's what I wanted, not shaved down to the wood and a nail in the berry. Nah, not for me.
So how was life in 2-9 so different to being in 4-9? Was it
It was different because I went to a gun battery, 145. Was it 145? Yeah, 145. I went to a gun battery, and because I was already a bombardier, some of them looked at it as, why is he coming in when it's our rank? A bit of that.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but you could feel it in the background. And quite rightly at some stage, because Rusty is playing football for the army now, and we've got an exercise to such and such, but he's in charge of the guns. So I got that feeling. And one day I spoke to the Sergeant Major. He said, "I'm going to put you on training wing then." I thought, thank you, God. I done guns all that. I wasn't learning anything on guns. Yeah. I knew it all from 3 years in Larkhill. All of the guns, 107s, 109s, Abbotts, 25-pounders. The only thing I hadn't been trained on was 105 pack howitzer, which was coming in. So I did the courses on that. It was easy enough. It was just a conversion. But because I was away playing football for the army and the gunners and the regiment, it was like I was like a part-timer. But I was a bombardier, gun number one. So the agreement was I could go to training wing, stay fit, become a training wing instructor, go and play your army football because we've got loads of instructors within, one person missing. It's not a big deal. So I did that for quite a while, running the 9 milers. I used to train every day. But never, ever, if you remember what I said in the beginning, I was in a tracksuit. So what I set out to do all those years later, back in a tracksuit full time, denims and boots, and the old, the blue PTI top
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah. Good. But I was back where I started off, but enjoying it because
Yeah.
I loved training people. I loved the chance to. A lot of the guys that are in touch with me, Rusty, I can remember when you took us through the training, this, that, and the other, another. Like you were saying, that your mate.
Yeah. My gun number one, yeah. My first gun number one.
So, yeah, some of them remember me because I can't remember them all until I see a picture of them. I'm pretty good at face recognition. I go, I remember him. And that's how it went. But I'd all that time training people. And when I wasn't training, I was physically training myself. When I wasn't doing that, I was playing football 3 times a week. The combined services down there, the ones in Plymouth, I could play for the army every now and then. I could play for the battery. I could play for the regiment. If you put me 5 games a week, I'd be going, all right. Yeah. Nowadays, I whinge and whine about playing 2 games and getting paid £300,000 a week. I nearly went professional. I could have gone on professional trial and come on to later.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't.
No, I am. But at the time, the money was Jimmy Greaves, £100 a week. And it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm glad I didn't as well, definitely.
So what led you on to decide to go for selection then, while you were at 2-9?
Well, there's only so much you can do. I call it itchy feet. I don't know what people call it. I'm not interested in what they call it. I got there, and there's a guy called John who'd been in the SAS and left. He was a good footballer. I played with him in the gunner side. And he said, why don't you get yourself up to the SAS? Well, Stu and another couple of guys that were in 2-9, they'd already decided that they were going to go for selection. I'd thought about it 2 years before, year before, whatever. But the fact is, I didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, this prompt come in. I thought, yeah, why not? I'll volunteer. So I volunteered for it in 1976. Because I was on training wing, I could go up to the Brecon Beacons and train like I wanted to, but with a couple of friends. So when there was in between courses in 2-9 Commando, you had that bit of a break where a little bit of do what you want, really. But I used to go up there just to train, keep fit. And at the same time, I was thinking, Dave, a good friend of mine, is dead now. I won't mention his surname. He came down to Plymouth, and it was a bank holiday. And he'd gone to the guard room. He was a vehicle fitter, Creamy. And then he went, and I helped him get through 2-9 Commando Course as a mate of mine. And of course, he fixed my car every now and then if there's something wrong with it. But I remember when he came down, I was actually sat in the laundrette at the bottom of anybody who knows the Citadel, you go straight down the hill. At the bottom is a laundrette, just slightly right, I think it is. And I was sat there doing all my stuff, throwing it in. Bank holiday, I thought, right, get it all cleaned up, take it back, then go on the piss. It turned up, MGB. I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I just passed selection. I thought, fucking hell. I said, I was thinking about it, Dave. He went, jump in. All the stuff in the laundry, I left with the woman that was in there. I said, can I pick that up? I jumped in the MGB, 3 of us, GT with the soft top,
Yeah.
I drove over to Hereford from Plymouth. I spent the weekend there, met a few of the lads. I thought, guys with hair down here and moustaches down here. I thought, it's just swayed me. It was as quick as that. I spent the weekend there, jumped on the train and came back, picked up my stuff from the laundry, went in and put a letter in, what do you call it? Because you've got to volunteer for the SAS. You have to volunteer. I put the letter in. And then I found that summer of 77, the following year, I'd been accepted to do the summer selection of 77, July to December, basically. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And when I did that, I started to prepare myself again mentally and physically, and then turned up in 1977. Whilst I was pre-training for that, Penny Fan, which is the highest point in the Brecon Beacons, trig point up there, I came up from the Story Arm side to the top, just training, two of us. Up the other side, at the top, John McAleese.
I knew you were going to say that.
I've, honestly, and a couple of the guys, they called him Killer, and not John, but the other guys. I said, what the? He said, oh, we're just training for selection. I went, when? He says, summer. I said, well, I'm on the same one. That's how we met again at the top of Penny Fan, which is the highest point in the Brecon Beacons, the national park.
Serendipity, that, isn't it? It's just mad.
So, yeah. So we stayed together, his group and our group, maybe, I can't remember, 6 of us, 8 of us, something like that. At the bottom of Penny Fan, it's not there anymore, but across the road where there's a big tree base there, not a forest, but last time I went there, that part of that's all been chopped down. Well, all we did was park the cars up there, put out the bashers, the tents, if you like, go training, come back, nip down the road to a place called Cefn Coed, literally 10 minutes down the road, go to the off-licence there, grab all the beers, bring them back, have a drink, go to sleep, go up training the next day, leave the cars there, leave the tents, go training, and come back. And that was done for, I don't know, a week, maybe 10 days. They went off back to Arbroath. We went back to Plymouth. And that's how it was. And the next time we met was when we finally got together for selection in Hereford. So, as small a world as it is, that's how it happened for me. And then I did selection.
Was that all that you expected it to be, selection? You know, when you first got there, the first phases of it?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect fully,
but
I knew I was fit. I could map read. If you can't map read, don't go on selection. I could map read easily. I was fit. And I knew when I turned up, it was one of the biggest selections that they had. The reason was there's quite a lot of disgruntled paras, because 77 is when the parachute brigade disbanded.
Yeah.
So they didn't know whether to go out the army, go and do selection. But it was a big course, but it was whittled down eventually. We lost a lot of people on it. The weather was really hot. And I mentioned in my book that when I was training, I took cans of cider because there's no water. Even the reservoirs were cracks in them, like you see it was really, really hot. But the physical side of it, it sounds big-headed, but I didn't struggle on the physical side, but it was hard. But I didn't struggle on the physical side at all. This side of it, I obviously didn't struggle because I passed it, but you're always thinking, what if I get injured? It goes down the line. But at the end of the day, you're looking up there for that berry.
Yeah.
And it's not handed on a plate. And there's an awful lot of guys for different reasons over that 6 month. Injuries, wasn't for them. All of that type of stuff. So every day you went back from your training, and the old spider huts and wooden bashes, as they call them, all these bed spaces would be empty. So you could move the bed around, you get extra space yourself, right? Because you didn't have a lot of space. But where you could make it, you made the most of it.
Yeah.
You move a bed away. Yeah, I've got that space over there as well. Yeah. I can put the weights over there. I can do a bit of weight training. Yeah. All that type of stuff.
Did you ever get the feeling when, like you're saying, when you got back to the billet and there was an empty bed there, or someone had been asked to you, they withdrawn themselves or whatever, did you ever get the feeling of like, right, good, I'm one step closer to finishing?
Yeah.
Not the feeling of like, I'm better than them, although I'd imagine that could creep in as well.
No, it did, because there's some good guys on there, which we're friends with, but for different reasons. But you have to respect that they've had a go at it.
Yeah.
And for what? And I haven't finished my course, so it could happen to me. So there's no point in being big-headed about it. It's not like that. I bet so many people have said, "Oh, I was going to do that. I should have done that. I would have done." Yeah, that's talk.
Yeah.
Talk the talk. You know what? Have a go at walking the walk. You'll see a different attitude.
I mean, not on the same level, but the amount of people over the years I've heard say, "Oh, well, I was going to join the army, but
yeah,
I was going to do selection, but."
Well, everybody could say that.
Yeah.
Everybody could say that. So the people who've been there and some good guys and let's say didn't pass the course or failed, whatever you want to call it, the fact is that they had a go. And it isn't for everybody. Simple as that.
Did you ever have a feeling of where you were at the state of, you seemed very confident. And did you ever have any doubts that, if you failed, would you go back to a unit or would you leave? Because some guys just can't, can they?
Depending on what you fail on.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through there, you can be injured. If you get injured, you can go back and do another course.
Yeah.
If you've actually binned, I don't know what it's like now, I'm talking about me. If you've been for whatever reason, it's unlikely that you go back on another course. Because it costs a lot to train an SAS guy.
Yeah.
And there's always new faces. Depending on the circumstances, I would have probably had to go back to my unit and make a decision whether I stayed in the army, just carried on playing football. Because when I got to the SAS and passed, I couldn't play for the army anymore. I couldn't play football for the army. But I did end up captain in the army SAS football team. Yeah. And I've got all the pictures there, with winning all 5 trophies in once. We had a good team. So it all worked out in the end. But I don't know what would have happened if I'd failed.
Yeah.
I'd probably have gone back.
It sounds like it wasn't an option anyway, so...
There's always an option, depending on what the option is, I suppose. There's a difference between throwing your hand in and getting injured.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do. Two different subjects, and I've seen both. I feel sorry for the guys who get injured, but actually you've got your self-preservation that you've got for yourself. Sounds selfish, but nobody's going to do it for you. So as much as you're there to help anybody, there is that in the background. Yeah, for definite.
It is an individual course, isn't it? It's not
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's not a team course. So what part of selection did you find the hardest of the initial selection before you went into further on in it?
Everybody says the jungle. And to some degree, I can agree with that. But I overcame that with hornet stings and everything. So the thought of being in the jungle is possibly the hardest part. But funny enough, it's enjoyable as well. You've got to be that way inclined.
A bit mad.
You do selection the first month, physical, okay, out the way. Then you go into when you do the jungle and escape and evasion and interrogation and stuff. That's a mindset. Physically, the jungle, you can't beat the jungle. You have to go with what you're taught.
Mm.
And I had the best instructors in the world, Lofty Wiseman and people like that. How can I fail? I couldn't, because I'd let them down. And they were the top guys, Benny and all the rest of them. Yeah, I was stung by hornets. I've still got scars here from these bot flies that bite into you. Everything goes against you in the jungle, but you have to just listen and watch and do what you're told.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Physically, it's mentally and physically draining, because you're soaking wet all day in sweat. And then it rains every morning. Through the night, probably it could rain in Belize in particular, where we did ours. It could rain for 6 to 8 hours, non-stop, every day. And you're under what they call a kip sheet. All it is that.
Yeah.
In a pole bed, maybe, if you're lucky. And then you've got all the things that want to bite you, like the ants and stuff. So it's not comfortable. It puts you out, but you want to go back and watch the TV and have a pint. Forget it. That's all history while you're in the jungle for a month or 3 weeks or whatever it is. Through the day, the actual physical training and stuff, okay with. But you have one set of dry kit and the stuff you stand up in. So you can put that on at night. But I tell you what, I don't even know how many hours sleep I had in that whole time I was doing jungle training. The trees are falling down every night. And you can hear them crashing. You just don't know where they're crashing. You're hoping it's not on top of you, because there's loads of it. Trust me.
Yeah.
And, they just smash into the ground and you can hear them. Well, you've got to be a good guy to sleep through that and not say, I'm not worried, because I've got one eye open like this, But yeah, it is difficult. And I would say probably the jungle training.
So what was the escape and evasion like? I mean, the only experience that I've ever had of that is we were on exercise once in Canada, and two Queens, we were there, still on their battle group, and we had a weekend of escape and evasion, and they chased us around quarters and interrogated, and we did it for a couple of hours, and I still remember it nearly 35 years later. It was fucking horrible. I didn't like it.
Well, what was left of the selection, when they do the escape and evasion and interrogation all linked into one, they take you out into the middle of the beacon somewhere. You don't know where. You haven't got a map or anything. No watches, no compasses, nothing. They give you the old BD, battle dress, trousers, big greatcoat, bit of string, 10p in your pocket. That's to make an emergency phone call if you can find a phone, which I had to use actually for once. And then they throw you out there and give you different RVs to make. You might have a map drawn on a white hanky as though you've been let out of jail. But you haven't got a map, you haven't got a compass, you haven't got a watch. So you had to make these RV points to get fed. And when you got fed, it was like a sandwich. So whatever you could find, you could eat. But if you get caught in a farmer's barn in these big fields, big area, their job was to report you on a certain number, and they come and get you and take you out as you've gone. Their reward at the end of the year was to get a big piss-up and banquet type thing back in Hereford. you know. So, you know, you have to play the game or take a chance. And you don't know when it finishes. You don't know exactly where you are when you dropped off. But you know you're in this area. If you get caught outside the area, you lift it off and then take it back and return to unit. So it was that strict, you know, but it was that type of what you could get, what you were hoping for. The best is you could find something to eat or steal something.
Mm.
But you knew if you could get to this rendezvous point with an agent, they'd say, "That's your next one there. Where's that?" "In a sandwich." They fuck off into the distance. So yeah, it's yeah.
So the interrogation side of it, how did you find that?
Interrogation is keep your gob closed, really. Number, rank and name, date of birth. Some people failed on it, you know, but it's. I have to think back and laugh about it because nowadays you think, fucking hell, did I really do that? Why did I do it? But number, rank and name, date of birth, nothing else. You have different interrogators, a female, a male, you know. One would be a tough guy, one would be nice and easy, have a cup of tea, this time. So they're putting you through, after all this wearing down of your body, it's now a mental thing where they're asking you the questions. Yeah, it's weird, you know. The female would come on, you're blindfolded. You start to envisage her with suspenders or something on, you know, that's passing the time away. And then you get the guy who comes up in your face. You can't see him, but he's there shouting at you. And you switch off from him. And the nice guy, "Do you want a cup of tea?" You switch off from him. And it just goes on like that, you know, over a period of time, which you don't know when it finishes. You're up against the wall the rest of the time. Yeah, so it's the world now. I've looked at it. It's a stage.
Mm.
Everybody in this world is acting a part. It was no different then, but I didn't know it.
That's one way of looking at it. So
It
when
is.
you passed selection, what was the feeling like then?
Well, when I passed, it was a good feeling.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, you know, to pass it was my goal. And all the guys that failed, for whatever reason, they were mates. Some of them still are. But I actually, when I passed, I wanted, remember the guy that picked me up in the MGB?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get, you volunteer for a squadron. There's only 4 squadrons, A, B, D, and G. So you can volunteer. They give you, what squadron do you want to go to? So everybody picks a squadron for different reasons. I picked B squadron because the guy I'm talking about was in that squadron. But when I went to Hereford for that weekend on the bank holiday, I'd met a lot of them. So I thought, I know them, but I want to go there and get into mobility troop vehicles. Got 3-4 troop, it's okay. It's not a bent for me. I like vehicles. Got mountain troop and boat troop. Boat troop I've got no interest in really. Mountain troop is okay, but I'm not somebody who wants to go climbing every day. And 3-4 troop, the sky gods as they call themselves, it's just boring. But mobility troop, we seem to have a great Fijian influx, you know, from the early days.
Yeah.
And my mates were there, and I volunteered for both, and I got both. But so did John Mack. He ended up in mobility troop and B squadron as well. So what we set out to do all those years before just came together. It wasn't planned. It did.
So when you've gone through selection, you've got to the squadron. How did the guys that were there already there? I mean, how did they take to you? I mean,
they need. It's not like now where you get loads of guys passing. Back then, if they're always keeping an eye on you, you look at them as though they're the god.
Yeah.
You're the new kid. Don't be too clever. Learn your trade, right? And I never actually accepted fully that I was in the regiment until 2 years after I joined. I've got the berry. No big timing. By then I was playing football for the SAS. I ended up captaining it. But no big time in it. We did the Northern Ireland stuff. We did all the training, the courses, and the demolitions and paramedics. All of that stuff we've done. When you've been around that cycle, 4 squadrons, does this make sense? 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. Every 2 years, you're going to go back to where you started, because that was the way it was when I started. By then I thought, right, 2 years. I've been accepted, by the way, like everybody, you're accepted straight away. It's what's inside your head.
Yeah.
Somebody might say, right, I passed selection, I'm going out tomorrow getting pissed. The next day there'll be RTU gone for whatever they've done. I took mine a different way. I went around 2 years, and then I thought, right, if they're going to get rid of me, it's going to be for a good reason. Because I didn't ask anybody to do that, but I'd been through everything they did over 2 years. So in that time, I've been promoted anyway. So I must have done something right without getting big-headed about it. Because when I got promoted, I didn't have a skill. But 1 or 2 of the other guys didn't either, and they got promoted because we had good officers. And one thing about B Squadron, we've had an awful lot of good officers that have come on to be generals and so on, over the years, colonels. Yeah. So that's the way I looked at it. I'm not saying I'm right.
No, it's
saying
you
that's
take
the
it
way
as you
I
find
did
it,
it
don't
for
you?
me.
Yeah, you take it as you find it. You'll find your own feet at time to time.
Yeah, but the good thing about it is when we passed, remember the Commando one I said you get the big parade and everything? Not there. You're getting, right, you're going to B Squadron, Rusty, go over and introduce yourself, such and such, you go to B Squadron, introduce, you go to D Squadron, all of that type of stuff. Go over there, and you walk in and say, and they go, Sergeant Major looks at you and goes, nice enough, but they've got a squadron interest room where the squadron are waiting. So you walk in there and then they go, right, this is the interest room. I'm the Sergeant Major, so this is the squadron commander. These are the guys. I knew a few of them anyway from when I was there earlier. They said, right, get yourself over to the QM's, Quartermaster's Department, get your burying belt, and then come back. That is your... and I love it, get your burying belt, and then come back over and sit down. That's how it started. You go over there and say, my name is such and such, has passed selection, and the quartermaster goes, okay, very no.
Yeah, no ceremony.
Sign
no.
there.
Yeah.
Sign there. You go, fucking hell, I've got to sign for it as well. So you get that, and then you go back to your squadron interest room, and it all starts from there. Very informal, the way I liked it, the way it should have been. Have the discipline, which by then I had to have discipline, but I had to work for it. I can tell you now, seriously work for it. And I got it.
You've joined the SAS now. You've done tours of Ireland and places like that. I suppose we should lead up to what a lot of people want to hear about. the embassy?
Yeah, the embassy is really just, it's been done to death.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it within reason.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might make another film out of it, right? But the embassy, for me, in my career within the military and outside the military, was for this little skinny guy all those years ago to be actually lead a team through a circumstance as a lance corporal on that particular mission is unbelievable. Even to this day, I'm thinking, I did it, but how? There were circumstances where a lot of the senior ranks we had were away in the Middle East training foreign nationals, making money for the government.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to bring them back because the siege could have lasted one day, but it ended up lasting 6 days. So I wasn't a commander when I got there. Roy was. He was the staff sergeant, but he was also a demolitions instructor. It was only when we got into day 4, I think it was, day 4, he went to do the distraction charge and stuff, demolitions, and he handed everything over to me. It could have been any one of us, not just me, but there was a whole load of lance corporals on that job. John McAleese, the Mink, quite a few. But I got the notes off him, and he decided that if the IEA had gone in immediate action, that I would lead the team because they would be up on the roof. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They couldn't possibly be at the back door and up on the roof at the same time. So I just took over from him. And the lead up to is the lead up. Everybody's seen that and talks about that. The final bit, when it comes down to the 6th day, which is the 5th of May, 1980, when everything else had failed, and they killed Lavasani, who was the press attaché to the Iranian Embassy, only a young lad, stuck his chest out at the terrorists a couple of times. So they executed him, shot him 3 times on the stairs. We didn't know that until afterwards. But when they threw the body outside on the doorstep of the Iranian Embassy, number 16, Princess Gate, once we had proof of murder, Maggie Thatcher never screwed around. Within minutes, because people sometimes still don't know that this was always a Metropolitan Police operation supported by the SAS. Once that body came out, within minutes, it was now handed over to the SAS, us, to put the resolution in place to end the siege. Because how many more people would they have killed? Maggie made that decision very quickly. And within 16 minutes, we'd got into position covertly around the building, top, bottom, back door, first balcony. And then we got the command, go, go, go. And the big explosion that Roy and them set off at the top, that was our key to enter the building. Multi-entry points. Yeah, multi-entry points on all levels of the building. Mine, lucky enough, was the ground floor through the library. And the mission was just to rescue the hostages. That was the mission. What was inside by then, we had an idea how many terrorists, what weapons they had, because of hostages being released. And snipers, the one that caught me with no gloves and stuff, behind me, they were taking pictures and everything. But throughout the 6 days, they had various ideas of what the terrorists were likely to be wearing. And that's how it started. So we got that. We got a body out the front of the building, which was taken away by police. And then we finally got the go, go, go and the explosion to enter the building and rescue the hostages. And that's what we did. They don't know, but there was probably arguably just 32 people of ours, SAS card, went into the building. about 70 on the operation.
About 70,000 on the balcony.
Oh, they're still there. They're still there. But the fact is that over those levels, it was covered 6 terrorists, and then we just sideways in, downwards, and entered the building, and then proceeded to clear the building to look for hostages to rescue. And finally, that 16 minutes was only so we didn't get compromised, which was good. It took 11 minutes to clear that building, 56 rooms on 6 levels, including the basement, to rescue 19 hostages. Yes, 5 terrorists died in there. 1 got out. And I don't cast myself as lucky, but the one guy that came down the stairs, which I'm always asked about, I was the leader in the centre of the stairwell of the coming from the first floor down to the ground floor. Everybody had to come out that building through us, the ground floor. There's no other way out the building. So as they were coming down, hostages screaming, shouting, being sick with the gas and everything, flashbangs going bang, 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 shooting. But we couldn't talk to each other to find out what was happening on each floor. So, all we do, whatever come past us, we identify, throw it down to the next man, throw them out. Eventually, they end up at the back of the building, where the hostage rescue teams sort them out, male, female, Iranian, like Sim Harris and people like that. And they're sorting them out, looking at them, plastic, putting cuffs on them and stuff, and searching to make sure they're safe. But in the meantime, we're still in there, waiting until our guys finally come through and go out that door. And the one guy that Faisal, who was the second in command of the terrorists, was a bit of a bully boy, but we didn't know at that time. This has been found out since. So they were coming out, as I say, coughing, screaming, doing this, that, and the other. But they had to come through us. And I could hear, I couldn't see anything, but I could hear pointing and, gas masks and stuff on. You can't hear anything.
No.
And the fact is that I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what, because of the mayhem in there. And 11 minutes it went over quite quickly. So everybody that wanted to get out were the one guy that was a little bit suspect, but he had the green jacket on, olive green jacket. I always remember that. He, when he was coming down, was trying to look over the banister. What they were saying up there, to this day, I don't even know what they were saying, but they were pointing. To me, it meant something. And so all the guys coming down the stairs and then push them out. But that one guy in particular, I couldn't see his face until he got to me and I grabbed him round, but I could see the hand grenade. When I saw the hand grenade, I just pushed him at arm's length and fired 2 bursts of automatic at him. And then later we found out that was Faisal, the second in command and the guy that executed Lavasani. So, as I say, I don't believe in potluck. Everything actually points to what happened that day. And that's how it happened. It's as quickly as that. You don't have time. You can ask questions. But when you see something like a grenade, I didn't know if the pin was in or out, I'll be honest with you. And to this day, it obviously wasn't. But I didn't know. But the fact is, I recognised him from the pictures, and at the same time, his clothing. At the same time, the grenade, and the job was to rescue the hostages.
Yeah, you weren't there to take the chance. And let's face it, you got what you earned.
Now, the guys have been there 6 days like Cold Springs.
Yeah.
Trust me. And I was supposed to be playing football on that. No. You can check this out. I was supposed to be playing football that day, Bank Holiday Monday, for Westfields Football Club, which is based in Hereford. And Andy Morris, right, he was the manager. To this day, he still runs Westfield Football Club. His brother stood in for me in the final and scored the winning goal. You can't make that up, right? Seriously. Yeah. So I missed the final, but actually there was more eyes on that than there was on the final because it was played at Kidderminster Harry's Football Club. Beat that one. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. That is a stone cold. That's in fact. That is fact.
So the aftermath of the siege, then. I mean, it put the SAS into the limelight.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it as a kid, as a young kid. It was in all the papers. It was, all of a sudden, all this interest in the SAS. Whereas I suppose before this, you're quite lucky that the majority of people didn't even know these existed. How did the regiment react to all this limelight that all of a sudden happened?
Well, I won't know the internal workings of the regiment because I was in it.
Yeah.
And for 3 years, I didn't know I was in it. That's how secret they were. but actually, everything changed. Everybody in the world wanted to be trained by SAS. They sent training teams out all over the place. I was involved in them, training people. Money maker for the government. And that's how it went on. They had a camp rebuild. The security was super enhanced. Everything. And not only that, I did hear when I was there that actually before the siege happened, they could have disbanded the counter-terrorist team because it cost a lot of money to train them and they're not being used. Remember the hijackings of the aircraft in the 70s? Then this happened in 1980. So training cost money. But that all of a sudden went like that. And we were training people all over the world. As I say, I was involved in some of those jobs. So it's beyond.
I mean, is the jobs that you could talk about that people would find interesting? Now, obviously, there's lots of things you can't talk about. I mean, for years I didn't realise that Belize or British Honduras, there was actually a war going on there with Guatemala and stuff like that.
Well, it wasn't a war.
Or an insurgency.
It was a threat.
Yeah.
It was a threat of attack. Guatemala next door to Belize. And what started it, I don't know. But we were sent there a number of times to, I suppose, reassure. And because I did my jungle training there in 1977. But I've been there a couple of times after that as well. But it got a bit... I think the threat was more than what was ever going to be. But we still sent our troops there. I was one of them. To find out information and try to... Because it's not like a straight border where you say, right, it's not like go down there, it says Carlisle that way, 30 mile, Whitehaven, 60 mile. It doesn't do that. If you can map read in the jungle, you're a serious contender, mate, because you can't see the wood for the trees, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful what you were doing. But that's why we were sent there a few times, to try and find out, was it a credible threat? In the end, it was all blown out. I used to have a T-shirt I'd made Guess what it had on there?
Go on.
Twataguat. Twataguat. Twataguatemalan. That's why I had on my T-shirt. Twataguat. Right, that's how serious we took it. It was another lip service,
Yeah.
But once I'd passed selection, I enjoyed the jungle. There's nothing. Yeah, I did. Selection's different because you're being watched, you're being pressured. When you're doing your own stuff there, it changes because your patrol that you're in, you do your own stuff to the best of your ability. Selection and jungle training, you have to look like you know what you're doing because of the very reason I've just said. A lot of people, they have this thing there called the bastard tree. Excuse the French, but that's what it is. And the amount of people I've seen fight that particular tree, and basically you walk that way, you hit these branches. Normally, if you look on the other side, that's where the thorns are. But these ones were facing you. So you walk by it, get ripped to shreds. You know what? You just stop, push it out the way, walk around it slowly, you're fine. That's why we called it the bastard tree.
Yeah.
Just little things for people to know. That's it.
So what other tours and stuff did you get involved in that you can actually talk about?
The what, sorry?
What other tours and stuff did you get involved in that you can talk about, like stuff in Northern Ireland?
Well, Northern Ireland's a bit touchy at the moment because they're still chasing people like me and other people, for things that, from the Good Friday Agreement onwards and stuff. So I'm not even going to mention Northern Ireland.
Right.
There's a bit in my book about it.
Yeah.
But, it's a touchy subject for lots of reasons. So there's no point in me putting my nose in on this because it's all documented. And
I understand that. I fully understand that.
The what, sorry?
I said I fully understand that, yeah.
Yeah, because the way it is now, the government and stuff, they're just after hounding people to death.
Yeah.
Let them get on with it. Best of luck. The fact is, they've never been there. They've never been under pressure there. They've never done anything. So eventually, it's sad. These are the guys that are ordered in to do something, and then all these years later, they try to hound them 30, 40 years later. What's the point? They did what they were ordered to do. You don't do it when you're ordered to do it. You get court-martialed.
Yeah.
Hey, what we need is somebody to stand up, and we haven't got it,
There's too many people worried about their own political ambitions to do that, to be honest.
Of course they are, and the money.
Yeah.
That idiot, what's his name? Johnny, the Veterans Minister. He stands up on one face, and then his other face is justice for veterans and stuff that were in the Gulf War that are seriously ill. He's blocked them all. He's blocked me from backing them.
Yeah.
And he's my old unit. He's my old unit too, like Commando.
Yeah.
Do me a favour. It's all this.
I interviewed
all that.
I interviewed quite a while back when I started doing this, and I think you know him, Roy. He was in the Pioneer Corps, and he's involved with the Gulf Association. He was the Pioneer Corps to go around picking all the bodies up and stuff.
Roy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
His was an amazing story. That, going out there to do that with no help, and then all the mental health issues he had later on, and didn't get any help, and it's been horrendous for him. Right, so we'll move on a bit more from there to the Falklands then, if that's okay.
Yeah. But the Falklands came out the blue.
Yeah.
Although we had guys down there, we knew about it. like a recce party, basically. But for me, I was on a Portuguese language course in Hereford, and we were all taken off it. All B Squadron were taken off it and said, right, we're prepared to go to the Falkland Islands. Okay. Because the conflict started in early April.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the date exactly, but we were sat there and okay. B Squadron's role was different. We already had D&G Squadron there. They were the first to go. We were B Squadron, and A Squadron would be the squadron that stayed behind in Hereford for anything that happened. So we went, we got ready, and then we left Hereford in April, very early April, because my son's birthday was in March 22nd, March 29th, 22nd. So early April we left to go to this conflict that had taken place. And then our first port of call, obviously, after doing all the training back here at Senny Bridge and all the bullshit, we went down to Bryce Norton and flew to the Ascension Island. Once we got to the Ascension Island, we had a full squadron, and then we were practicing, in a big American air base there, with a big airfield and everything. So our job was to jump on these C-130s, and we were told that we were going to attack Stanley itself. And we went up and flew around and landed on the airfield, and vehicles come out the back full of guns blazing. But then, after a period of time down there, the Ascension Islands, it's got officially the worst golf course in the world in the Guinness Book of Records. It's volcanic lava. So we had the motorbikes on there and everything, mobility troop. Yeah, we tore the arse out of it, but the bikes come off worse. The golf course was still standing. So we did all the training there and on the airfield, fly around, come in as if we're going to attack Stanley. But it was all a bluff.
Yeah.
Actually, they're looking at us attacking mainland Argentina. And the reason was that the Exocet missiles, they did all the damage to our guys, flown by pilots, with the super étendards and stuff. So the Exocet missiles, given to them by our mates, the French, And then we got the super étendards that flew them, then released them, sea-skimming missiles. And, we lost a lot of guys and a lot seriously injured. Yeah. So our mission, was to go C-130s, a bit like Entebbe with no chance, fly from Ascension Island to mainland Argentina, to Punta Arenas, the main airfield. And then the mission was to get rid of the pilots, get rid of all the aircraft, and destroy the Exocet missiles that were left. That's what we trained for. Then we had the unfortunate incident where 19 guys on one Sea King helicopter cross-decking. Good friends of mine, they're all buried in St. Martin's. Their headstones are in St. Martin's. When the helicopter into the sea, and that's where they lost their lives, 19 of them. So the plans changed a bit because we lost 19 guys who were supposedly for mainland Falkland Islands. We'd lost them. At the same time, more or less, the recce party that had gone into Argentina, ours had been compromised. So they had to do a run into the border of Chile, of which Pinochet at the time, he was friendly with Maggie Thatcher. So we had a safe area to go to. Our job, if we'd gone in and landed, we had no chance because there was thousands of troops on there, was to land 2 C-130s, jump out, get the vehicles out, get the motorbikes out, go and find the mess, go and find the aircraft, and get rid of it all. What's the chances of that? Nil. And then escape and evade over the mountains of Chile. Right, that was what it was called. What's it called? We called it Operation Certain Death.
Yeah.
But it was actually called Operation Mikado, Mikado.
I mean, it's proper boys' own stuff, Commando comic type of it. But
cardboard cutouts, mate. But if that had gone ahead, I wouldn't be here again. There's no chance.
No.
Not a chance in the world. But when that was cancelled, we then got funneled down to take over from the guys in D&G squadron that were coming out. So we had no weapons and ammunition because it all went to the bottom of the sea when we did the parachute jump into the Atlantic. Everything. It was murder, absolute murder. You watch the pilots go out with all our kit on, weapons, everything. We jump out behind them into the Atlantic. And all you've seen was the pilots being pushed out, the chutes going that way, the pilots going that way, and we had to jump out after it.
Fucking hell.
It's in my book. It's in the regiment book. And...
So whatever could have gone wrong, went wrong.
Well, I put it in the book and they asked me to take it out, but I said, no, I was on that aircraft. Basically, it looked like it was rigged up very late before we jumped. And it wasn't good enough, basically, because I got back one the para bags that you used to pack the chutes in. Well, I had an empty one with the tracksuit and, my main 3 weapons and everything else, along with everybody else's, went to the bottom of the sea. But there's a few things floating about which didn't have weight in them. That was one that I got back. That's all I got back. Everything else, bottom of the ocean. So as they came out, this is when we swapped over, we took their weapons off them, their ammunition, and they came out and flew back to the UK. And we took over. As the days went by and we'd taken over, we'd got on to Stanley. But it's just in time. He can't make it up. It was just in time for the surrender. So Mike Rose, the colonel, down there, they took the surrender. And very quickly after that, the Argentinians had all been marched away. And after that, it was just unbelievable because after all of that, what we've been through with this mindset, all of a sudden, it's finished. It's like a film. Bam. So we were flown back to the UK and left it to the guys, who deserve their praise down there, taking care of everything. So we were late on a number of occasions, not on purpose, circumstances. But when you think about it, it could have all been very much different.
Yeah, very different.
Really different.
I'd heard about Operation Mikado, and I've read about it.
It's thought up and dreamt up by a nutcase. But actually, the difference going into Entebbe and going into thousands of miles down to Argentina, you'd have had to refuel in midair. How would you keep above radar?
Yeah,
it's just But, you know, and then you have to be seen to be taking casualties. Well, we've taken 19 already.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
So what was for you? What happens? Well, sorry, I'll rephrase that. What was for you after the Falklands? Then there was just more. So
it was back to a lot of training, going abroad, training people, different, bodyguards over in Nigeria, back to Northern Ireland. All of that stuff was on that cycle I talked to you before. Courses, whatever operations, including Northern Ireland. And that went on like more or less 6 months at a time. For very much of my career there.
What was probably the most mundane thing that you look back on and think, well, yeah, that was poor. Apart from just being stuck with something.
I think the most mundane thing was prior to going out the regiment to go to 2-3 at the end, which is the TA, that was a voluntary by me to spend another 2 years, get myself ready for Civvy Street. So the mundane thing for me was actually doing that Brinco course, Brigade and Regimental Intelligence and Non-Commissioned Officers course. I passed it, but it was like an ashtray on a motorbike, it was like, fucking hell, death by viewfall.
Yeah.
But that was down at the School of Intelligence in Ashford. I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
So all the other courses, the language courses, the demolitions, the close quarter battle, CQB, nearly every course I did, I enjoyed. Paramedics course, everything. That was towards the end of my career, but I didn't actually see what it was going to give me as an end result. What was I going to do with it? And after I did it, the Berlin Wall came down. So everything I did was a waste of time. So imagine that. So I can laugh at it now.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't. But what I will say is that 99.99% of my time, apart from things like that, nobody had to motivate me in the SAS. There wasn't a day I got out of bed where I didn't want to go to work. I was spoiled by the sports choices. I played football for them, captained them. I played rugby for them. I played cricket for them. So my tracksuit at 15 was still there when I left at 42. And nobody can take that away from me.
Yeah.
Not one person can take that away from me.
You mentioned there about ending your career with 2-3 SAS, and you were planning on, looking to the future. Obviously, a lot of guys, when they leave the military, they haven't planned, or all of a sudden it just creeps up on them and they don't expect it. It's a big shock and stuff like that. What was being a PSI at 2-3 like?
It was cushy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it gave me time because then I was helping run the football team as well as playing for it. Back in Hereford was 60 odd mile away from. So I had a good guy there, a guy called Mac, who was my understudy to 2-3. I didn't need to look after him. So I could allow him to go and do what he wanted to do, knowing fine well that he knew what to do. So that was okay. So I had 2 years where I got paid to go to work in Birmingham, a drill night once a week, sometimes the odd exercises at the weekend. But in the main, in between that, I had to run the mill, do what you want. But at the same time, I did the courses, which were pre-release courses, which are paid for by the military. One of them was the what's it called? The knee bush certificate. Yeah, health and safety. And people go, fucking hell, health and safety. I went, I don't want it. But actually, the civilian employers do want it. So I went and did that, Plymouth College of Further Education, 6 weeks. So I went down, did that.
So far removed from what you've been doing previously. No, health and safety.
Oh, it was totally fucking boring. But you know what? That puts your mind to do anything.
Yeah.
So I had to dig in on that. I passed it. I got my certificate and everything. Tick in the box. Not for me, but for somebody. Rusty's got that. I even did the food and hygiene course while I was there in my spare time. It's only a day. Yeah, I'll do that. And it went on like that. I did the forklift instructors course. I did that and got all these licenses that last for 5 years. Didn't use them, but I got it. I just made use of the time. Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Just in case. But at the same time, every weekend, more or less in the season, I was still playing football for the regiment and in the West Midlands League as well. So it just shows you how what started came around. Nobody can take that away from me. That actually happened.
So how prepared were you for leaving then? I mean, like mindset, obviously going into Civistry, or did you have a good idea of what you were going to go into anyway?
No, normally unless you've got another plan. Most of the guys that I know just go into the circuit, as they call it. You know, you're going to go in there mixed with guys that you know. You go in there, similar types of jobs, but now a civilian. But the difference is you now get a chance. Yeah, I'd like to do that. But you can say no. In the military, you can't say no.
Yeah.
Right. As a civilian, I might do that. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. You can say no as well. So you've got all these different, you come out, you're highly trained, you've got a lot of experience. They want to give you a job, but they want to make more money off you than they're going to want to give you. You know, it's that way that I found at my time. That's what it was.
But, is it more glamorous or not?
Some of it.
Yeah. I suppose
but I think if you do, what I'm doing is I'm doing my book now, my third book.
Yeah.
Rusty Firmin, SAS Aftermath. So that will tell you everything in there, what I did from leaving the army, a bit before to run into it, and then what I did after. So that's a totally different story.
And you do a lot for charity as well. You do a lot for charity. I understand that you're the patron for the Victoria Cross Society. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Have I said that right?
Victoria Cross Trust.
Trust, that's it. Trust. Sorry.
Yeah, Trust. Yeah.
How did you get involved with that?
I was asked.
Yeah.
It's a distant relationship, but actually, I was involved with that for quite a few years now. So I was asked. It's unpaid. I don't get paid for it.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I don't get paid for any of the patrons or ambassadors that I've done. So I do it because in the background, if my name helps anybody in what I do, people know of me, it might help to support the likes of people who need it. Because let's be honest, I don't think the War Graves Commission and stuff ever clean Victoria Cross graves. It's left to a charity like Victoria Cross Trust to go out and clean all these graves up and put them back representable. So I think that and how I got involved in it is by word of mouth, and they've seen what I've done before. And so things like that need, not only that, but they all need people to help and support, because you step over the line, it's support for one, but there's no support for the other. So anything that can go towards them, is always a help.
I mean, how can I put this? I mean, I've been chasing you for like the last 6 months. I've been chasing you for like the last 6 months to come on. Most of it not getting through to you. But that's my fault for not being good at chasing you. You must get inundated constantly for requests for stuff.
I do. I think sometimes people don't realise that I'm getting on a bit.
Yeah.
And some people take advantage, but I seem to work them out quite quickly. I always try to help. But as many as you help, every now and then you get some people who want to stab you in the back.
Yeah.
Which is, I suppose, it's part of the course. I mean, it's a different story, but there's another story going on in my life at the moment, which might come out as soon as possible, really. But I can put up with it, but I need to have people to accept that I can't do everything.
Oh, you can't. No.
And really, if they can get that, then they might think slightly different. Some people think it's a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Right, Rusty, can you come in? No, I can't, because I'm busy. I've got my own stuff going on. People don't understand. And I'm not going to be rude about it, but at the same time, I've got to where I am, being me. Nobody else. Never asked for anything off anybody. So, but I'll always try to help. Always,
So what made you decide to write your first book then?
Well, I've got 2 non-fiction books out.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told there's not many people got 3 non-fiction books out about themselves. So, the regiment book, that goes up to 1992 when I left. The book I'm doing now goes from 1992 until present, wherever present is when I finish the book. So there will be a time when people go, who's that guy, Rusty Firmin? Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
One of them was made into a film. I didn't. I'd like to have my second and third book into a film, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is to try and get it finished.
I mean, that was going to lead on to that about the movie 6 Days. You were involved with that, weren't you?
Well, I was the advisor, but
yeah.
I didn't write the script. What I did is I took the script writer, Glenn Standerin, to Hereford, and I introduced him to some of the guys and said, they'll tell you what their part was. They knew mine because of the book.
Yeah.
Go, go, go. So when he came over 2015, he came over in 2015, 16, somewhere around there. Took him to Hereford, 5 or 6 days. I took him around sneaky beaky, showing him pictures of stuff and take a picture of that, take a picture of that. He went back to New Zealand, spoke to the guys individually in a pub, made his little notes, went back, wrote a script, and that's how the film was made. Once he wrote the script, they did show me the script. What do I know about fucking film scripts? Nothing. But I read it. There was no running away love stories and, all the shit you get in Hollywood. So that's how the film came about.
What did you think of it? What did you actually think of the movie?
Well, I've been big-headed. But it wasn't supposed to be like Rusty Firmin. It was supposed to be, which it is.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is it's a camaraderie that they wanted to portray. John Mack, myself, all the close people. The only reason that I was in that is because of that.
Yeah.
No gloves.
Yeah.
It could have been anybody else. That was a storyline that they picked up. But the good news is, I had everything they wanted. I had the pictures, everything, so they could put that story together. Let's be honest; it should have been made a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. But because I was one of the only ones around that had the info and knew everything about it, and to this day, why do I get taken to the States to present the presentations and stuff? Nobody else does,
Mm.
but I do.
All because they're not wearing gloves.
Exactly.
So
There it is.
I wasn't going to ask about that, but why? How? Why no gloves? What happened?
Well, it's in the book, but
Yeah.
basically, over the 6 days, things happened. We stood down when deadlines approach, in particular. At the very last time that it happened before we did the resolution is take my gloves off and put them down my body armour. There, that's where my gloves are. For some reason, when we went in that last time, I took my gloves off and put them on a table with John. We were chatting away about what we'd just done, what we're going to do next. Watching the snooker, Alex Higgins versus Cliff Thorburn in the final. We were both snooker fans, and we played pool together and stuff. And then we got the final after they killed Lavasani to get into position. I left my gloves on the table when we were watching snooker. I went outside with the rest of the guys, got in position, and on the way out, I realised I didn't have any gloves. But I couldn't go back just to pick up a set of gloves. And we did the final assault, rescued the hostages. It was only then when I went back to pick up the gloves.
So at least you didn't lose them then.
No. But that's how they were taken by police snipers on the way into the building. You can't see it. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
That's the print on my website. I've got the books there. If you want to see them, they're all on there. I've got them just there.
Yeah, I'm going to put the links. I was looking at the website this afternoon, and
Yeah.
up on there, and I'll put links all in that in the show notes ready for when it goes out. There's some good stuff on there. That print's actually quite good. I must admit,
Yeah.
I
Well, I'll send you
I
one.
thought it's cool.
I'll send you one. You know.
Well, Rusty, I don't want to take any more of your time up. It's getting late. What's your
bedtime?
It's getting close to mine. What's your plans for the future apart from finishing your third book?
Well, I want to get the book finished. I've done nothing on it now in the last 3.5 weeks, really. So I need to get back into that.
Yeah.
But I'm going down to Hereford, see my other son. And then into the new year, the plans are that I'm still going to do a 45th anniversary of the siege.
Mm-hmm.
Just sorting out the venue for that, book signing, everything. Invite one or two of the guys up if they can make it. I'll do that up here in the north. And then any of the other book signings where I've been asked some motivational talks. I just do what comes up.
Yeah.
Because I find my time. If I look there, diaries from 1992 until now.
Wow.
Because I was self-employed as a security consultant. That's where I'm getting my information from again to write my next book. Well, the one I'm on now. And even the top guys have said, I don't know anybody who's got 3 non-fiction books about themselves. So you do now. So I'm working on that.
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Right, I'd like to say thank you for coming on, Rusty. It's been a pleasure and an honour. You know, I'm a bit of a fanboy as most of us are. Honestly, thanks for coming on. It's been great listening to your story, and best of luck with your new book. And I wish you all the best in the world.
Thanks very much for the invite. And if you let me know whenever you're ready, send us a link or two, like the other guy did. To just have a look at. I'm quite easily going. The fact is, what I say is what I say.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say take.
Kind of get that. Yeah.
Well, that's it.
It is what it
straight.
is. Yeah.
It is what it is, mate.
Right. I'll stop the recording here. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button, and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that'd be great, because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully we'll be out next week as normal. Bye-bye now.